Good morning. Hope everybody had a fantastic weekend of week 2 football. And welcome into the number one Group of Five football podcast in the world. This is the Group of Five guys. If you're new here, if you haven't seen us before, our mission is to be the voice for the Group of Five football programs. And the mainstream sports media absolutely refuses to be. We need everybody's help to do that. We need you to follow us on all the social platforms at Group of Five guys. Go to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your best podcasts. Subscribe to the channel. Leave us a 5-star rating. Leave a review. And tell your family and friends all about us. Or you can go to groupof5guys.com and get you some Group of Five Guys swag. On this Monday morning, we are going to recap a marvelous weekend in San Marcos, Texas. Big time game, big time atmosphere, big time environment. Just a great weekend all the way around. We're going to talk about a lot of games where we went toe to toe with the big boys. Only got one of them done, but we're going to recap all of those and a bunch more. Hope you enjoy the show.
Have you had it from somebody born and raised in Lafayette, Louisiana, at a tailgate? Doubt it.
I said Michael Pratt has got to show up and play, and boy did he. 394 yards, 4 touchdowns, 48 rushing yards on the ground, and another touchdown.
Projected getting drafted between the first and third round. That's incredible. The wide receivers are absolutely stacked for the Group of Five.
Yeah, I really appreciate you do for the Group of Five programs, and I think it's great. I think we should get more of this, but you guys are on the forefront of this. And
I'm thankful for this. I'm glad that you're talking about the Group of Five because I think they get overlooked.
But it's a ton of fun to watch a guy go to the NFL from a Nevada or a Colorado State or a Middle Tennessee or an App State, and fans follow that kid.
Jeff, have you ever needed a hot cup of Deca Gray coffee on a Monday morning as bad as you needed it today, my friend? As I have not.
No, I mean it's doing the trick right now. Getting in off that plane. I mean, we had an early flight. You took off at I think like 6:30 or something. Me and young Ben Glizzy, took off at about 7:20. Got straight in. Went straight home. Kids were ready to rock and roll. They missed their old man being gone for a couple days, but yeah, this is doing me just right.
Yeah. I got the whole pot. I went the maximum pot this morning. Already got my first cup. I'll probably have to have another couple before we really get this day going. But hey, shout out to Deca Gray Coffee Company. We talk about it every time. Roast to order. Stuff's not sitting on a shelf. Okay. And honestly, man, I'll say this. I've ordered 3 bags and the shipping is fantastic. I mean, it comes out. I don't know if he's got Amazon working for him or what, but I've had all 3 bags have come in like 2-3 days. But it's actually, I mean, no joke, it's a really good coffee. I know Jeff and I drink it black. My wife drinks all her coffee with all the fixins, and she said she don't have to put anything but a little milk and a little sugar packet. That's it. And she loves it. So Deca Gray Coffee Company, go to their website, check out the Group of Five Guys Game Day Dark Roast available, and use our promo code GOFG for a 10% discount on your purchase. Now, speaking of airports, Jeff, I have a problem. I have something to complain about.
What you got?
Well, there's a lot I got to say, actually. But first thing is, these guys that are traveling, have some self-respect. I'm in there and I'm seeing these people, grown adults now, 30, 40, older, wearing like pajama pants and slippers. And then they got their sunglasses on, they got their little neck pillow, just look like they're sleepwalking through the airport. And then what happens is they get up there and then they stand in front of the boarding line. You don't know if they're in line or they're not in line. They're all waiting for the same to get their little zone called. But they're sitting there in their pajamas and their slippers. Half of them are trying to run through the airport like that because they're late. I mean, we got, you know, have some respect, throw on something decent, at least have some pockets and some sneakers on or something that you can move around. I don't know.
The
I
the
don't know.
the
I don't
lack
like it.
the lack of spatial awareness in airports is astounding to me because
Bad.
like I'm very aware. I try to be very aware. Like I don't want to bump into anybody. I don't want my stuff just like sitting around so it gets in people's way. But when you are at an airport, people are just clueless and lost. And like I get it. I get it. It's somewhere maybe you've never been there and you don't know, or maybe it's your first time flying, but I bet that you're the same way in a grocery store as well. You just don't have any
Yeah.
awareness for what's going on and around you, and it's a problem for sure. It's a problem. And
Well,
don't get me started when people start wearing sandals with no socks. It's like, look, buddy, there's nothing better
the
than
airport.
smelling the aroma of feet in an airplane
Yeah.
that doesn't have
Yeah.
windows and the AC barely blows. So come on, put some shoes
Yeah.
on, buddy.
Well, on that spatial awareness piece, I mean, the worst is when you got like a family of 5 and they're walking side by side, li- almost linked arms, and they'll be walking at a regular pace and you're right behind them. And then for no reason at all, they'll just stop and they'll turn and start looking at each other to start having a side conversation and block the whole row. And then it messes everybody else up. And then, they don't get out of the way for the wheelchair guy coming through. I mean, it's bad. And again, we've said this about other stuff. Everybody wants to say it's the millennials or the Gen Zers. It ain't all the time now. I'm talking grown men, 50, 60 years old doing this kind of thing. But anyway, Jeff, we got to talk about this trip. I mean, I can't get enough of it. I will say this might be controversial. We've been to some big time football games as we've been doing this group of 5 guys thing. And from an overall standpoint, I realize it's a rivalry game, okay, and we haven't been to a ton of real serious rivalries like that. But from a tailgate perspective, an in-game perspective, a student section perspective, and just overall entire Saturday from morning till night atmosphere and environment, I don't know that can be topped from what we've seen so far.
It's special. No, it really is. And, shout out to everybody. There's so many people that, help make that weekend possible and help make it really top notch what it was. And I know Sprouse has got a list, but Don, the AD, President Danfus, the Maroon and Golden Collective, appreciate you guys, allowing us to come in, check out the facilities on Friday when we got in there. Did a show, floated the river, tailgated Saturday, did our show, walked around the tailgate. I mean, it was special. And Ben, who is was our videographer, producer that came with us this weekend. He's a middle. He goes to MTSU. He's in the film program. And when we were in the game, I looked at him. I was like, this special, ain't it? And he goes, I wish we had this at middle. And I was like, buddy, it's one of the other reasons why we started this thing, to try and figure out what the recipe is and hopefully try and help all alma mater. But it's different, man. I mean, the crowd was electric. You got the president that he is a rock star. Like
he is.
He goes around. I think he spent 45 minutes. He walked around the stadium, and every student that wanted to shake his hand or had their phone out, he grabbed it and took a selfie with him. And we got the opportunity to sit down with him Friday for 30 minutes or so, and we have that pieces of that interview that will release later. But one of the things that hit home for me, and it's one of the reasons why this not only the athletics, the football team, the university is on this fast track of growth, is he says, as the president, my job is to serve this university and serve these students. It's not their job to serve me. And I was just like, this guy gets it on so many levels, and it's no wonder why this program and university is where it's at.
Well, and it's a wonder why they love him. I mean, you can just see the admiration that the students have for the guy. You're exactly right. I mean, me and Ben were walking, probably 20 feet behind him as we were trying to get to our spot in the stadium, and he's walking in the front row through the student section. And yeah, you're not joking. I mean, he probably stopped 20 times, took somebody's phone, took a selfie with him, making TikToks with him. I mean, just as we say, just a guy that gets it, and then it goes all the way down the chain. I mean, to the AD, to the coaches, to all the athletics administrative staff, the assistant ADs, everything into recruiting, into admin, into equipment, into facilities, and they all get it. They all have the same vision, and they all understand what it takes, and they all understand too now their role. And that's something. When we toured with Don, the athletic director, you got several different weight rooms, several different locker rooms, staff locker rooms, training rooms, things like that. And they all understand, where they need to be, right? Everybody knows like football's going to be the highlighted athletic program at every school, unless you're talking some of the big time basketball programs. But and they get that, and then football gets it too. Where look, no, these people have to have their own space too. This is not just we're going to have one weight room, and when the football team needs to work out, everybody gets out, or when the football team goes in there, they got to share it with the women's soccer team or anything like that. So you got all these different zones in their facility. It's not even done yet, of course, but where everybody kind of has their own spot. But man, I can't. It was so refreshing to talk to Mr. Damphus, man. I mean, just sometimes you have this perspective of a president, whether that be of a school, of a company, of anything like that, and he just denies every stereotype, right? I mean, and he said it multiple times, like, I'm just a guy, man. I'm just a football fan. I'm just a basketball fan. I just like people. And when you watch him interact, again, from people at tailgates, the students, the coaches, I mean, he's just one of the dudes, And it was really refreshing to see and to hear him just talk about the opportunity that they have, and the opportunity that they have with this expanded playoff, and what that could mean, not only for this football team, but for the entire university, is what we've been talking about. He said, he talked about it. They've had the Texas State flag flying on game day the last couple of weeks, and you can say what you want. We talked about this, and I mentioned this to him, is it doesn't matter how good your school, your medical school is, your law school is, your engineering school, business school is. None of those are going to make you have the platform to have your brand flown in front of millions of people on a Saturday morning. Football's the only thing to do it. And having that happen increases your brand recognition. And then if you do have the opportunity to make the playoff, and we're already going to see it, you're going to start seeing game days. You're going to be forced to talk about Texas State if the football program is in the mix for this playoff. And then if they get there, I mean, you're going to have a 2-week-long commercial for your school. And so it was really refreshing to see that, to understand that no other program or, school or class, anything like that, provides that opportunity like football can do. And so you really love to see that from him. And can't think, good thing we're right down this. Look, there's too many people to thank for just inviting us in, for the hospitality, but floating on the river, Alan, Justin, Hunter, Tom, Michael, you guys, listen, first of all, that river, very refreshing. What'd you do, Jeff? You purified yourself in the river?
Purified myself in the waters of the San Marcos River.
It's very refreshing. Now, it wasn't as hot as it typically is, supposedly, out there in Texas, but the river was nice, man. About knee to waist high the whole way through. Couple places it gets up to probably chest height, but not too cold at all, and it's certainly not warm like bath. It ain't bath water now, but just really refreshing. Goes at a nice pace. Really can just sit there. You really can just sit in your tube, and it'll take you down. A couple times you got to maybe pull yourself out of
the rice,
Texas rice grass. Yeah. Couple turtles, couple fish, nothing else. I didn't see any snakes, anything like that in there. But
I just don't know how. If you were a student there, no way I'd be going to class. I mean, you got people laying out, in the little, Sewell Park area and reading and sunbathing, playing in the river, basketball courts. I mean, it's a great campus, and it's a pretty campus too. They just do a good job over there, and couldn't get me off that river if I went to school there.
Yeah, you almost wanted it to keep going. Like you're on there, and you're like, man, I don't know if I want to get out.
And then he hit the rapids down there by Ivar's.
Well, now Ben lost his flip flops on there, and I almost lost my shades on there. I didn't know that was unexpected because I'm in my tube, and I haven't gotten up to the nips wet yet. Then you go through that, and then you get the whole body wet. That was a little bit of a shock, a little cold at that point. But no, man, just a really great time. And then the game itself. I mean, that student section, you heard Jeff Traylor say it. That student section was deafening down there. And you can't tell me it doesn't make a difference. Anybody that says anything about, we always hear the fans of a losing team say they don't go to the game because the team loses, and they're doing it backwards to me. I think that's backwards because I think the fans show up and it can help a team stay in a game they shouldn't be in or win a game that they shouldn't win. But anyway, from a game perspective, I mean, just total domination, absolute domination. There was 1 point early, the first drive of the game, Texas State turns it over, and then their defense just freaking bows up, and UTSA doesn't get anything from it. But Texas State, especially defensively, I thought, but man, just dominant from the first whistle.
They really were. And, Texas State had the ball to start the game, and McLeod throws a nice slant route, pops off the receiver's hands. UTSA gets the interception. And at that moment, the momentum could have swung so hard in the Roadrunners' favor. The Bobcats are 0-5 against San Antonio. Like, they have this big monkey on their back. They're trying to get off, and your first drive, you get a turnover. But man, that defense came out and was full of energy, and they just wanted it more. They were physical. They were flying all over the field. They get that stop and get the ball back for their offense. And really at that point, the offense really never looked back. McLeod, I was very impressed with McLeod. First time getting to see him live and in person, just calculated, calm. He knows this offense through and through. You can tell that. Didn't make really outside of maybe a couple plays, but they didn't even really hurt the team. Like, didn't make very many bad decisions. If it wasn't there, he's going to take off and run. If he can't get away, he'll just take the sack or he'll throw it away. Like, and that's what you got to have. You got to have a smart quarterback, knows what he's seeing, but more importantly, when the play breaks down or your offensive play, it's called into the perfect defense where you're not going to be able to beat it. What are you going to do in that situation? And he did a great job of not turning it over. Was very, very calculated. And then, did a great job running the ball. I didn't realize, they do a lot of design quarterback runs with him, and just can't say enough about from all three phases of the game to energy. We were we went up in the press box for a minute to get a drink, and we were just watching it right before halftime. And I look at Sprouse, I was like, at this point, I think there was only like 20. I think Texas State at 20 was up 21 or something like that. I said, San Antonio's dragging. Their energy level on defense, hands on hips, walking around. You could just tell that this meant a lot to the Bobcats and G.J. Kinney, and he was not going to let it slip away.
Yeah, definitely some body language, poor body language, I thought, from UTSA. Like you said, hands on hips, and then, your front D line barely even getting their hand in the dirt before the snap. That's never a good sign. And they had a chance. Look, it was 21-3 or then I think 28-3, and UTSA had a chance to make it 28-10 before the half, which is not an insurmountable lead. Well, and then they go and give it right back to Texas State, who goes and scores again. So, you have a huge little swing there towards the end of the half that really put that thing away. Anyway, Jeff, we got to talk about it. AP poll came out. Our poll came out, and I want to say something too, because I'm starting to get, a lot of the people are on the Twitter talking about, matter of fact, Texas State is a team that was brought up. How is Texas State so high? They looked bad.
When?
You didn't watch the game or what? And all these things, and then the Boise fans are upset. But look, it's about first of all, again, number one, these polls are meaningless, okay, except for clicks. I mean, let's be clear here, okay? But we do. I mean, we sifted through that damn top 25 for several hours Saturday night, and then again Sunday morning, and then again a little bit Sunday afternoon. So it's tough because you got to look at the body of work, and you look at Boise State. Yeah, sure, they went toe to toe with Oregon, who, for what it's worth, Oregon also went toe to toe with Idaho the week before, and then Boise didn't look. I was there on the field. They didn't look fantastic against Georgia Southern. So yes, they played Oregon tight, and they looked like a really good team. But UNLV and Memphis, yeah, they haven't played anybody as good as Oregon yet, but they've been dominant. They haven't looked not great. They've looked great all the way through. And then, Texas State, yeah, they looked pretty pedestrian against Lamar, but they looked fantastic on Saturday.
Which we find out, and Kenny admitted to it, and this is what we had talked about. He played it very tight and vanilla against Lamar because he didn't want to show anything for that San Antonio game.
And they took out McLeod. They took out McLeod a little early.
Yeah.
Yeah, they went up 3 scores, and then they took everybody out in the first half. So
and to the Boise point, Sprouse, we're watching the game, and Boise had that game. And
yes,
even with not being able to stop a punt or a kick return, like they still had an opportunity to win that game. And I thought, and we both thought, that the offensive play calling in that last drive, you have the best running back in the country, and you run it on first down and you get 4 yards, so it's 2nd and 6, and then you take the ball out of his hands and you throw it twice, which stops the clock because there's incompletions, and then you punt it back to Oregon, and then they just run clock and kick the field goal. So they looked great. Genty is him. He's that dude.
Yep.
But play calling and coach decisions goes along, in my opinion, with this poll. You have to factor in eye test from week 1, how they played against Oregon, coaching decisions. That's now been 2 weeks in a row with Boise.
That's right.
As far as taking the ball out of honestly, the best player in the country's hand.
Yeah.
So you got to factor that in too, because that's 2 weeks in a row now that they've done that. They should have beat Oregon. They let them off the hook with
100%
spotty tackling. And I know Tez is a group of 5 guy, fast kid, but you can't let those guys have explosive plays, missed tackles, and then the coaching decisions down the stretch on offense. So I think where they're at is a good spot.
Well, and you could make that same argument for Tulane, right? I mean, they had Kansas State beat and they didn't. But special teams for Boise, they have to fix that. And look, Dirk Cutter is a legendary offensive coach, and we literally said it. There was 4.5 minutes left, and they got the ball back with a tie game, and we looked at each other and said, 4-minute offense. You have your 2-minute offense, right? You need to go score quick. You have your 4-minute offense. You need to run the clock. You go 4-minute offense. At that point, you get 3 or 4 first downs, and you kick a field goal, or you make Oregon call their timeouts, and you didn't do either. And on the first play, it looked like, they absolutely could have done it. At about 4.5 yards on the first play to Genty, then you throw it twice. 2 incomplete passes. Oregon doesn't have to use any timeouts. Then, at worst, if you use some clock, you give them the ball back with a minute left. Now you give it back to them with 3.5 minutes to go.
Yeah, now the pressure's
on
them.
And they do exactly what we were saying Boise should have done. So that was quite a bit frustrating. Quite a bit frustrating. Well, Jeff, I'm going to give you a reaction from each conference. You tell me if this is an overreaction or not. In the American, UTSA has been replaced as a top 4 team in the AAC.
Replaced? I think they're on the fringe. I'm not going to count out Traylor. Traylor has a body of work at San Antonio that you can't just easily dismiss. Now, they got to figure out the quarterback position, and part of that was Texas State did a very, very good job at stopping the run, which that's their bread and butter. If they can't stop the run, you know, they've had Frank Harris in the past that's been able to make plays with his feet, move around, and also throw the ball very well. Owen McCown looked a lot better in week 1 than he did in week 2. And they brought in ELM. He looked okay, but it's hard to judge because it was the second half and they were already getting crushed. So I don't know about replace. I think they're that 4, maybe 5 team fringe in the American. I think I'm not ready to count them out mainly because of Trailer. I think we'll have them ready to go next week.
Yeah. Well, and I think you could say Memphis and Tulane are 1 and 2, and then I think South Florida looks like they might be that 3rd spot, and then North Texas is looking like a contender, but I'm not ready yet to put North Texas way ahead of UTSA.
Well, I don't think you write off their season. So some UTSA fans, you get the knee-jerk reactions like. I saw a couple of things about Trailer. I'm like,
isn't that wild?
Like, pump the brakes. Pump the brakes.
Yeah. All right, Conference USA, Jeff.
Jeez.
FIU has arrived as a contender in Conference USA.
We talk about it. Mac's 3rd year. Every coach's 3rd year is supposed to be the year, right? I thought that the performance they put on against Central Michigan, who I thought looked great the week before, was dominant. So yeah, I'm gonna say
5 interceptions.
I'm gonna say FIU's right. We talked about that defense, right? We talked about that they got some dudes on defense that look like they can play. You get that many turnovers, you're gonna be in games. Not only be in games, but should be winning games. You get that many turnovers. So yeah. I'm good with it. FIU's they're in the mix because the rest of the conference, let me tell you,
yeah,
it's looking rough, and that includes Liberty.
That does include Liberty. Yeah, we'll get to them in a minute here, Jeff. In the MAC, NIU's win over Notre Dame truly puts the MAC in the CFP conversation.
Yeah, I think 100% it does. Great win. And I want to backpedal just a little bit because we're getting a lot of flack as well that NIU should be higher in our poll than number 9. But you're talking, I think they were 24th last week, and you jumped to 9. I think that's fair. Now, what I was going in back and forth a little bit with Zach Green on Twitter was, we've been sitting here saying we are hoping that we draw Notre Dame. We don't think in
Notre
the playoff.
Dame's very good.
So, yes, it's a great win. It does everything for the brand. Could not be happier for Coach Hammock and those guys. They deserve all the credit in the world. They went in there in a tough environment and took care of business. We're not knocking what they did. Couldn't be happier for them. But in one breath, we can't sit here and say that we hope we play Notre Dame because we think they're fraudulent. We think they're overranked. And then when they beat that team, like somebody was like, they should be number 1. And I'm like, I'm watching both films. I'm watching NIU for 2 weeks, and I'm watching those teams we have above them. And they would be great matchups if they played each other. I just want to see more week in, week out from NIU after this win to really see if it wasn't just, we're going to play completely high up because it's Notre Dame. I want to see it through and through.
Well, and the other part of it too is back on the Boise train or even the Tulane train. Like, look, yes, you played potential playoff teams, but like, when did we become a society that rewards a loss? I don't care who it's to. You know what I mean? I mean, and the way that, especially in Boise's case, the way that they lost, where they should have won the game. Tulane had questionable call number 1, and then they also had a young quarterback make a young quarterback mistake. Where Boise, it was like they can't stop a punt return. I mean, there's a lot of that goes into it. Mountain West Conference, chalk it up. UNLV versus Boise State, first weekend in December. Lock it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to count. I'm not going to count out Fresno. I think Fresno's a very good team. I was very high on them, but at the beginning of the season, I think Mikey Keene is a dynamic quarterback, one of the best in this conference. So I'm not going to count out Fresno State, but they look like the two clear-cut favorites for sure.
Yeah. And then look out, Jeff. The Spartans of San Jose State sitting there 2-0. Big win against Air Force over the weekend.
Yeah. Air Force is.
Yeah, struggling.
Yeah,
bad.
Struggling.
Bad. Sun Belt Conference. Texas State. This is Texas State's to lose at this point.
I don't want a knee-jerk reaction. I try to stay in the middle. I try to be an umpire, Sprouse. I try and just call balls and strikes as I see them. But being there live and that performance, now if they can play like that week in and week out, yeah, I think it is Texas State's. But we're also talking about the Sun Belt here, and it's a gauntlet. I don't care who you play. If you're playing Southern Miss or Old Dominion, or you're playing, App State. But boy, that was not a pretty performance by App State, Clemson. So, yeah, I'm gonna say it's Texas State's to lose right now.
Yeah, they look clear cut favorite. Speaking of overreacting, you gotta have this to have a good fan base. Have the overreactive fans. I mean, that's sort of part of it. But I'm going to tell you, these three fan bases, James Madison, Liberty, and App State fans have been in shambles. And for Liberty and James Madison, they're in shambles after wins. And App State, the App State fans that are, in my opinion, a little bit overreacting. It's that was not good on Saturday. But I almost feel like this has kind of been a trend for them. They have that early season game where they just look really bad. And then next thing you know, there they are at the end of the year fighting for a conference championship. So we'll see. I mean, I do agree, though, that was not pretty. And then for Liberty, Liberty, so you have a couple different reactions. So last week, right, it's Conference USA is so bad. We got to get out of here. We're so much better than well, now you better worry about winning them games in Conference USA, first of all. And then second of all, they're questioning Chadwell. A lot of the reasons they're questioning Chadwell is they've had just these dumb, undisciplined penalties. And that is super frustrating. As a fan, there's things that are, the unsportsmanlike post whistle penalties, and then like what we saw Oregon do, dropping the ball before the goal line are probably the two things that would frustrate me the most if I was a coach. I don't know how I would handle those because they're just so dumb and so inexcusable. And I, this is part of it too, especially for Liberty and their fan base. I mean, you are the school. I realize there's Methodist schools and Christian schools and Catholic schools across the country, but Liberty is the one that at least tries, nobody get mad at me, to actually embody what they say or what they preach, right? And so if your football program does, it has to represent that to a degree. I realize you want to win, and that's part of this balance, right? But that's where you can't have penalties like that. And I saw a couple of the guys got on Twitter and apologized for their actions. And look, we'll see what happens next week. You can't do it anymore. If you're going to apologize, it's got to be a one and done. You don't do it anymore. But they've just got to start playing better. I mean, I think you couple that, right? You couple the fact that they haven't looked very good and they're getting these dumb penalties, and that's going to piss off a lot of fans. And then James Madison, yeah, they struggled a little bit. I mean, they're already calling for the coach's head. The guy's been the head coach for 2 weeks. Just pump the brakes a little bit, guys.
We have to not be so quick, especially when you have a new coach. In James Madison's case, like, you're building a new culture. You have a lot of new players, and it's difficult to get those guys, everybody bought in week, out, especially early on in the season. Like, you're going to go through growing pains. You're going to go through coming out flat and having to figure out mid-game how to overcome that. Like, they're human beings. Everybody, you can go to work one day and feel great. The next day you wake up, might have to be just a big day where you got a big meeting and you just don't feel great. And you got to figure out in your mind how to overcome that and be ready to play. It's no different when you go out on a football field. So give these guys some time, especially the new coaches now. In Liberty's case, we talked about in the offseason, Salter had such a great year last year. Was he going to be able to replicate it? And I know they're having some, had some injuries, had some stuff going on the offensive line. But there is a possibility that he overachieved last year.
Mm-hmm.
And things just happen to go your way that make you statistically and I mean, even on film, like, you look great because of this certain situation. Now, I still think he's a great player. I think they're going to be fine. I still think they're the favorite in this conference. But let's just have some realistic expectations that it's not the exact same roster and team from a year ago. And you got to, learn your team, learn how to figure out how to get through certain situations. I think everybody just needs to take a deep breath. It's week 2. We're going on to week 3. This thing's going to shake out. Just sit back and enjoy the ride.
I want to add 2 things about what you said about Salter. I think that's a great point about maybe he overachieved, because we know he was potentially a target for a lot of Power 4 schools as a transfer. And I think that has a lot to do with why when a guy transfers and the next year just doesn't quite go as well, is I think sometimes the season that makes them such a target is a bit of an anomaly. And everything went perfect. They got the targets, they made the catches, they made all those throws and got their numbers. And I think to expect when you have, record-breaking type seasons, to expect that is going to be tough. And then the second thing for him, yes, I realize receivers had a bunch of drops, missed some routes, but Salter, he had some interesting body language the other night too now. And I didn't really like that. Kind of, hand, look like he's yelling at his players, real obvious. I get it. You want to take leadership, and if a guy runs the wrong route or drops a pass, he needs to be held accountable. But I think there's a way to do it. And I didn't like some of the antics, I would say, out of him. But
I agree with you. And I want to shout out the YouTube chat real quick. Got some good back and forth in there. If you're listening on Twitter or Facebook, whenever we do these shows, the YouTube live chat's awesome. It goes back and forth. We got great people in there. Tyler Arendt's in there. Joe Judkins, Matt Hardigan. What's up, Matt? Zachary Branner's in there. Joey Sandvig, who goes by Hybrid Athletics, says he played at Liberty. So that's awesome. Appreciate you being in there. But yeah, come on over. It's great conversation in that live chat. Come check it out. And Sprouse, before we get into these recaps, and I know we got to move on, I got to play this clip from Colin Cowherd's show last week.
Play it.
Got to play it. We'll talk about it real quick. But this is what we're fighting against, ladies and gentlemen. This biased, that it's 2 separate games, that teams, the group of 5 doesn't belong in the conversation with the Power 4. We'll get into it. And this clip especially going into the weekend, it didn't age well.
I hope you're sitting down for this revelation. It may catch you off guard. Of the top 10 teams in the country, 5 are SEC, J-Mac, 4 are Big Ten, and 1 is Notre Dame, who, in my opinion, should join the Big Ten. Academically and football, they feel like the right fit. You can alter and change college football. Transfer portal, NIL, conference realignment. Disband the Pac-12. Folks, you can change the tax system. Rich people gonna stay rich. The only college football program that has entered the national championship discussion on a regular basis in the last 50 years, Oregon, because of a brilliant man named Phil Knight, his company Nike, and their vision. And if you think in a 12-team playoff, a Liberty, a Boise State, a Houston can line up 4 times against the big dogs, it's not going to happen. You don't have the dogs for this Iditarod.
Well, Sprouse.
A lot to unpack in that short little.
That didn't age well for him.
Yeah, first of all, Houston, I agree. they couldn't do it, but they're in one of those big conferences you're talking about there, Colin. you mentioned Oregon over the last 50 years. Yeah, all that. They're in the conversation, all that money, and yet they still haven't won it. They haven't won it. And then Boise goes blow for blow with them that day, and almighty Notre Dame goes down to NIU. And what I find funny about that is, he says those 10 teams, 5 are in the SEC. What did he say? 4 in the Big Ten. The other's Notre Dame. Well, that's because you guys keep putting them there. Like, what? Notre Dame, what was the stat that they brought up? They have lost 38 times to an unranked team as a top 10 team. Was that the number? I think that's the stat they brought up on the TV. So, like, what have they done to earn the right to just they're always just top 10? Because they never win at that spot, ever.
Nope.
I mean, dude, it is so frustrating. We went last week 2 was, we often have Power 4 upsets or wins. And a lot of times it's stuff like UNLV beats Houston, right? And that's a big win. We'll take that win. But on Saturday, Bowling Green went to Happy Valley and really outplayed Penn State. And then they had 2 late interceptions that took them out of that game. South Florida went to Tuscaloosa for the second year in a row and went toe-to-toe with Alabama. That score not even close to what that game actually was. Tulane takes your favorite probably in the Big 12 to a controversial call. We'll leave it at that. And Boise goes to Eugene and has that game won if they give the ball to the best player in the country one more time. I mean, granted, I tweeted about this. Almost doesn't count, right? But you didn't just go against the Power 4. You went against Bama, Oregon, Notre Dame, Penn State, who are all, even still, they're probably going to try to throw Notre Dame in the playoff. I could bet you they're going to try to find their way in there. But those are all playoff teams, and when you talk about Bama, Oregon, Penn State, those are legitimate. They've been top 10 for the past couple decades, right? And, I mean, you went to their house and went toe-to-toe with them. And again, maybe they can't win 4 times, Colin. But what I've been saying is, yeah, neither can anybody else.
That's exactly
even
right.
Penn State, even Oregon, even Notre Dame. There is no damn way in hell they are beating Georgia one week, Ohio State the next week, Bama the next week. There's no way in hell they're doing that. So don't give me that. And I want to add one more thing, because I saw our good friend Josh Pate was all over Twitter as App State was getting bludgeoned by Clemson. Oh, he made sure he noticed that one. He made sure he noticed that game.
Yeah, and that's something.
And he tweeted something about, isn't it funny that, the team Georgia beat by 30 is now beating App State by 30. And it's like, well, first of all, they're the only ones that thought App State was the only Group of 5 team that was capable. They're the ones that just plugged App State. They do the same thing with the Group of 5, App State, Boise State. They just plug them in because that's all they really know. That's all they've ever watched before. But just failed to mention Notre Dame losing to NIU, failed to mention Boise being up on Oregon a lot of the game, failed to mention Bowling Green going to Penn State. I mean, it's again, nobody is sitting here saying that Tulane would win the SEC, but you're foolish if you think they wouldn't win some games in the damn SEC. And you're foolish if you think they're not better than at minimum half of that conference. I don't care what you say. And it's just, man, it's just frustrating. It's so frustrating because now look, you still have Notre Dame is still ranked ahead of NIU.
That's
so
exactly where I was going.
So what does that do, Jeff? So that means this is how they're going to look at this, because NIU is going to start playing MAC schools, and the disrespect is going to be there. So Notre Dame is going to have the opportunity to keep climbing, because if Notre Dame goes and beats Stanford, their big rivalry game against Stanford of the Atlantic Coast Conference, they'll go beat Stanford and they'll say, "Oh, look, big win over Power 5 Stanford," and then NIU will beat whoever, Eastern Michigan. They'll be like, "Oh, they don't play anybody in the MAC. They don't play anybody." Well, They played Notre Dame at Notre Dame and beat them, and didn't beat them off fluky stuff. Because, by the way, we need to get into these games, and this is going to be the first one we're going to talk about. They tried their damnedest in that game, too. And I didn't realize this because we were busy down at Texas State. But did you know this, Jeff? Notre Dame's up 14-13 in the fourth quarter. Northern Illinois is driving. They're on Notre Dame's 20, 3rd and 2. They get the first down by like a yard and a half. Obvious. No questions asked. Well, they spot him about a yard short. Then they review it. Still spot him about a yard short. So what does that do? It stops the clock and makes NIU kick the field goal then, where it would have gave them the first down and let them run the clock out and then kick the game winner as time expired. So not only did they make NIU kick it early, but they allowed Notre Dame to hang on to their timeouts. I mean,
we saw it across the weekend on games, and we'll talk about the Tulane game when we get there, but that was not offensive pass interference because the defensive back not only engaged first and held Fleming. What that route is you're motioning in, and then he motions right back out, and he's running a flat route on the line of scrimmage. So even if Fleming wanted to block him, it's technically a screen because he's off the line of scrimmage to motion already. So he's already a yard or two set back. So he motions in and he comes back out and runs that flat route. And that's one where, you want to make it difficult for the ref to know whether it's a forward pass or behind the line of scrimmage, which then makes it a screen, which then makes you're able to block. But he still didn't block him. He ran out through the outside shoulder. The DB engaged and held him, and then he was trying to get off, and then they throw the flag, and there were other plays in that game as well that were questionable. But we got to start getting into these games and recapping.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that NIU game first, right? That's the big win. Congrats, Coach Hammock. Love that for him. Love the post game. I'll tell you, man, Ontario Brown, what a day. 99 yards on the ground, another 126 in the air. What have we been saying all offseason about NIU getting back to their identity? They had the ball for 34 minutes in that game compared to Notre Dame's 25. And in that last drive, even though the refs tried to blow it for them, they did exactly what they wanted to do. They run the ball, run the clock out, and win the game. And they damn did it, man. And can't be happier. Now, come on back next week and win again.
Yeah,
that's the key here.
If you can control the time of possession from an offensive standpoint, not turn the ball over, you're going to be in most games that you play. That's the recipe, especially when you're playing a Power 4 opponent. Control as much time of possession as you can, and you got to be able to extend drives. You can't have 3 and out. So they were able to run the ball, extend drives and not turn it over. I thought Hampton played a very good game. Didn't have quite the stats he had from a week ago, but he didn't turn it over. That's the key.
Yep. South Florida, we talked about this, way closer than that score. And we said it, as we were watching that game, when they were down 8 and they kicked that field goal to go down 5. I looked at you and said, I said, this is where they're down by 5 with like 5 minutes left. And I said, this is where they got to get a stop, but Bama's going to go score, and then they're going to turn it back over, and then Bama's going to go score again, and it's going to look a lot worse than it was. But, hey, man, that's 2 years in a row South Florida went toe-to-toe with Bama. Maybe it's an Alex Golish thing, because you got to remember he was the OC at Tennessee when they finally beat Bama. Maybe he's got a little something.
He's a really
hot
good
name
coach.
in the SEC, and somebody going to try to figure out how to beat the Tide.
Yeah, he's a really, really good coach, and the way he has his offense and the way he calls plays and formationally just gets you in tough spots, and it allows the quarterback to figure out, what the defense is in, and then he can make better decisions, throughout the play and pre-snap and post-snap. So I think credit to him and just the players that he's been able to recruit and keep there. I mean, they have all the resources to continue to grow this program to be a top contender in the country. They just got to be able to keep him and keep those good players.
Yeah, and Byron Brown, he gives them a chance every week. We talked about Kansas State, Tulane. The first thing, Mensa, the freshman, on that scoop and score touchdown for Kansas State. You just got to take the sack and hold the ball right there, Jeff.
You got to know when it's over. And that's just, there's nothing you can do except learn by experience. And I hate that was a learned experience in that moment. But hell, go back and watch that film. This kid is special, y'all.
Yes, he is.
I mean, he threw a couple balls that were dots on the money, like sliding into the pocket in his left, get his hips, turns around and throws a freaking dime post for a big play. And we were not concerned. We were wondering what the quarterback situation, who was going to be going into the season. There's no question.
And you were almost, we were almost a little worried when it wasn't named Kai Horton or Ty Thompson. We were like, ooh, that seems weird, but
yeah.
You know,
I want to see a little bit more from the defense, though. I will say that.
Yeah. Do you think for their playoff chances, do you think they have to go win in Norman this week?
I don't. It depends how this game goes. If you have two tight games that are losses, but against Oklahoma and Kansas State, and then you win out and win the American, I think you have a very good shot. And that's even with being, having a one loss. It depends who the other one loss is. If you have a one loss Boise State, then no. But I think they still have a shot. But it's got to be a close game. But I'm rooting for them to win. They didn't look great against Houston. Oklahoma didn't.
Yeah. They did not.
And I believe, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Oklahoma has Tennessee the next week. So you got a potential little trappy here.
Yeah, you do. Troy going to Memphis, man. I'll tell you what, Mario Anderson. It is wild to see somebody run the ball for 125 yards against Troy.
It's a different look,
but I thought Troy looked better than they did a week ago. And I think that's something for the Troy fans that are worried. You look at the places that have done this. You look at even a Louisiana, you lose a guy that's just did really what nobody expected to do for a couple years. So you're probably always going to take a step back, and then that'll allow Coach Parker to continue to build the program, for several years to come. But Memphis also starting to be quietly now one of the best teams. It's funny because they haven't played. Now they play Florida State this week, so we're gonna find out. Florida State 0-2 coming off of a long week of prep. So I don't like that for Memphis's case.
And big performance from Mario Anderson, South Carolina transfer running back. That's one thing. If they're able to run the ball, they can throw it. So that's going to be a tough out. Memphis is good.
Yep, they are very good. Bowling Green at Penn State. Man, when we were watching some of that in the morning, Bazelak was carving them. He was carving up Penn State, and then he had 2 straight possessions with an interception late in the fourth quarter. And that's what put that game away for Penn State. But Bowling Green was up on him most of the game.
That's what we talk about, man. You can't turn it over. If you lose a turnover battle, odds are you're going to probably lose the game. Not every single time, but especially from a quarterback's perspective. When it's tight, you cannot turn it over, whether it's a fumble and interception. And he played great early on, going toe-to-toe with one of the premier Power 4 programs. And they just let it slip away late. Harold Fannin Jr., dog.
Yeah, dog. Yeah, dog, dude. Oh, Jeff. The Mountaineers of Appalachian State go to Clemson. I mean, I'm just going to read these to you. After the first quarter, it's 35-0. But here's your 5 touchdown drives for Clemson in the first quarter. 76-yard touchdown. 51-yard play, then a touchdown. 83-yard touchdown. 41-yard touchdown. 29-yard touchdown. And the worst part about it is it didn't get any better than that. It kept going. Big plays, big plays, big plays. How? I mean, we didn't get a chance to watch a ton of it because for some god-awful reason, that sports bar in San Marcos, apparently they don't have ESPN, which I don't think it was a DirecTV scenario because they had ABC. So I don't know what
World Series
happened
of
there.
poker on. I don't know what the hell's going on.
Hey, they had poker, yeah, World Series of poker and a Kansas City Royals baseball game with the volume on a football Saturday. Hey, I guess Texas State already got the win, so they weren't worried about any more college football on the day. But man, you just big plays like that are they're about as frustrating as the unsportsmanlike penalties.
Yeah, if you want to compete in these games, you cannot let that many explosive plays. And this one is, I'm just chalking this up to, you just came out probably flat, and Clemson got their ass beat the week before, and they came out and wanted to make a statement, and they did. And App State just happened to be on the, receiving end of it. But guys, Stu's right is okay. He was on suicide watch, I think, for a little bit. He said there was a bridge over there, but he wasn't jumping.
He wasn't going to do it.
He wasn't going to do it. They just,
well,
you got to respond this week. That was one of the worst performances you've had in a long time. Respond this week, and you'll be fine.
Well, and I think this too. I think the way Clemson lost to Georgia didn't help App's cause, because we talked about it even before the game. What did I say? When you lose like that, that next week of practice is physical, and it's back to freaking basics. I can promise you they were doing inside. They were doing half line. They did some board drills on Tuesday. Like, back to, we're going to get after it, and we're going to be the team that dominates people, which is what happened to them when they played Georgia. And I think it speaks for two things. Number one, I think Clemson's going to be fine. You watch Clemson the rest of the way in the ACC, I promise you they're going to be in the mix for the championship. And we know Georgia's going to do that to everybody on their schedule. So, I don't think the issue is, I don't care who you play. 76 yards, 83 yards, 51 yards. I mean, you just can't do that. You cannot give up big plays like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just busted coverages, and that can't happen.
No, it can't. And Tyler in the YouTube chat says, does this performance hurt App State's playoff chances? A little bit if they was on the cusp, but if they like went out, then I don't think, it's an early loss. I think that they'll have a shot depending on who else is going up against them. So yes, depending, but if they take care of business and run table, which is, how hard that is in the Sun Belt, like that'll be a good piece to their resume.
Well, that's an example. What we talk about Tulane, right? Let's say Tulane goes to Norman and loses by a touchdown, and that's your decision. 2-loss American champion Tulane and 1-loss Sun Belt champion App State. I think if Tulane has 2 1-score losses and App has that, it's going to be Tulane, because the committee's going to look at it like that, right? Well, if Tulane can go in there and have a 1-score game with one of these teams, put them in there, be an entertaining game. Now, in App State's favor, they'll know. What are they going to know about App State? Their fans are going to travel. App is probably a bigger national brand than Tulane at this point. TV ratings, Jeff.
That's very true. But you know what's funny? And we'll move past this after this and go to the rest of the recap the games real quick. Early losses, right? They always say, the committee says early losses are better than late losses. So does what they'll say about if NIU goes on to win the MAC, they'll say, well, Notre Dame's early loss was to the MAC champion, who's a good team.
Yeah.
And this is why Notre Dame should be in the playoff, because they got beat by a very good MAC champion. But they would never do it on the flip side.
Oh boy, they were ready to crown Notre Dame after they beat a Texas A&M team that has been about as consistently mediocre as a program can be over the last decade. I mean, it is just. Anyway, Marshall, Virginia Tech. I thought Marshall defensively played well. This game was 17-14 until late in the third. The defense played very good. You can't have 13 for 36 from the quarterback. That ain't going to get it done against anybody.
Hell of a one-handed snag by that young man.
Oh, love that. Yeah. But, I think I've been saying it now. I think Marshall is somebody you got to look out for in the Sun Belt. If they can figure out how to not go 13 to 36, I think they got a chance. Now, those are the main headline games. We'll roll through the rest of these really quick. Army took care of business down at FAU. Army, look out now.
They're sneaky.
Yes, they are. And
I don't know if you remember this, Sprouse. In our preview show, I said if Army can get past FAU, they're going to go on a nice run on their schedule where they should have very winnable games. It could be undefeated, maybe one loss going into a big game late in the season.
And I want to say that big game you were talking about might have been UTSA, which, I mean, my God, they better figure it out because Army going to dice them on the ground real quick. Charlotte looked a little better, scored 20 points at North Carolina, and the quarterback got hurt, though.
Yeah, and I think it's a pretty serious
broken
injury.
hand, I think, bro.
So, or wrist or something like that.
Speaking of Army, look at Navy on the other side. Looking a little bit sneaky. I know Temple's not great. But we talked about how interesting it would be having two teams like this in the conference. And for some of these teams that got to play both of them, you need some guys beat up a little bit. You're going to I'm going to tell you, man, defensive players hate playing against a team like that. As good as you might be, even if this was Georgia, they would not want to play a team like this because it's just you've got to be so locked in, play after play after play after play, and you're getting beat up physically in a way that you don't typically get beat up physically. Hey, here's another 2-0 team, Jeff, the Pirates of East Carolina. And look, but man, ODU and close games, I don't get it. I mean, this is like 3 years in a row now for them.
It's wild.
And they can't seem to win them.
Yeah, and we talked about Jake Garcia earlier in the week and 4 interceptions. They still get the win, had a great performance out of their running back. But that you're not going to win too many ball games throwing 4 picks. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Arkansas State and Tulsa, Arkansas State, or at least I was high on preseason. Yes, they're 2-0 also, but they have not looked very good. One of the most impressive wins of the weekend.
Shout them out.
What about the Warhawks, Jeff? Louisiana Monroe, I mean, just convincing fashion over the Blazers.
I love it, man. Shout out to the Warhawks and had a great performance, by a couple of different running backs. Hardy and Curry had great performances. General Booty, not a great, stat line there with only 87 yards. Yeah, great name. But didn't turn it over. So, I believe they had a pick 6 and big trying to look through here, but yeah, shout out to the Warhawks, man.
Yeah, you got to start paying attention to the Warhawks. We're guilty of not paying attention to them. We'll start paying attention now. Rice got back on the winning train, 69-7 over Texas Southern, and then North Texas got it done again against a good Stephen F. Austin team. Stephen F. Austin is a good program. So North Texas keeping it rolling.
Offense is rolling. Morris did have 3 interceptions, though. That was the one thing I took away from that performance. You got the win, but you can't turn it over, man.
Moving on to Conference USA, the Miners, man, that was a tough one, and we watched the end of that one. Tough. The overtime loss.
We're rooting for you guys, man. We want Scotty Walden and company to turn that thing around.
They'll be okay. They've got to figure it out. They got to figure out how to win the games like that. We talked about Liberty already. Just Liberty, man, just very undisciplined. And I'll say this, shout out to New Mexico State for everybody wrote them off. I mean, they came to play. Blue Raiders down in Oxford was not pretty. 52-3. Jack State went to Louisville. I mean, they held their own for a while. Louisville pulled away late. Let me talk about the Panthers of FIU.
Pitbull Stadium.
Pitbull Stadium was rocking 18,000 in attendance down there at Pitbull Stadium. They intercepted Central Michigan 5 times. 5 times, Yost. 5-time player of the week. But it's always been for FIU. What's it been over the last several years? Can the quarterback protect the ball? And this year and last year, can Kewan Jenkins protect the ball? 10 of 18 for 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, and
not amazing, but he didn't throw a pick.
And he had a rushing touchdown as well.
Yes, he did. And defensively, what we talked about earlier, we liked their defense this preseason. So they're looking like they might be okay. Western Kentucky in the whiteout, 31-0 over Eastern Kentucky, and then Sam Houston went down to UCF. Not great. UCF, a lot of folks. But I saw that stat. UCF's got the best odds to win the Big 12 right now. So, isn't that crazy? They'll be a playoff team if they win the Big 12, but we had to go undefeated 3 years in a row when they were in the damn American Conference. NIU was the bright spot for the MAC. Is otherwise the MAC. I mean, they played some tough ones. Western Michigan, Ohio State 56-0, Buffalo, Missouri 38-0, Akron and Rutgers 49-17. Ball State had to claw to beat Missouri State. Kent State takes the loss to St. Francis. Eastern Michigan, they weren't the worst. Going up to Washington for that game. Toledo, that's a big win. I think UMass is a decent program or a decent club this year. So Toledo gets that win 38-23. Did you get a chance to catch any of that? What did you think of Tucker Gleason? Did he do anything to impress Jeff Murphy?
Just to be fully transparent, did not get a chance to rewatch that game when I got in yesterday. It's hard when we travel. It's hard to catch a lot of these games. I didn't have Wi-Fi on my plane yesterday in Southwest.
Speaking of Wi-Fi, I'm going to give you two negatives of San Marcos, Texas. I'm going to give you the two biggest negatives. The service, the cell service, and the Wi-Fi in that town are just. It's weird because you'll have the bars, and it just won't work. And that's not even just like, I'm by the stadium and there's thousands of people everywhere. It's like even in the hotel room, you're on Wi-Fi, don't work. In the restaurant, you're on Wi-Fi, don't work.
Makes no sense.
And then the other thing is they have these crickets. They're these black crickets, and they're everywhere. I mean, we were in a damn high-end hotel, Jeff. I can't even get on the elevator without getting smacked in the face by a cricket in the middle of the broad daylight. They got to do something about that. I don't know if that's like a pet, I don't know if those are like how we get cicadas. And it's like they come out and it's like a plague. But it looked like the plague for a while. It looked like we had the locusts coming into town. But they were everywhere. Ohio Bobcats, Alex was high on the Bobcats. Now Gio Lopez didn't play, which this is now a couple years in a row where maybe we just don't do a good job checking injury reports. But I had no idea he was even hurt. And I feel like this happens all the time in the group of five where you even know a guy's hurt. And then you're like, well, why is he not playing? Oh, I don't remember even what his injury was.
I didn't see. I
think it's a toe injury.
Yeah, from the week before. But that's what you kind of get that. They run him quite a bit, do a lot of design quarterback runs with him, and he doesn't slide. He's big like a running back. So he just, you're too important to your team. You got to get down and slide if you have to.
Yep. Jeff, let's run through these next ones pretty quick because I know we got a bunch of voicemails. Fresno State gets a win over Sacramento State. Sacramento State's a good program. Oregon State, San Diego State, we talked about. Could Marquez Cooper could he duplicate week one? Unable to for the most part. And then Utah State went to USC. Not very pretty there. I'm going to say something. UNLV scored 72 points. Listen, they're doing this without even throwing the ball right now. They haven't even touched a whole half of their offense. So I'm looking at UNLV, and they got a big one this week, Friday night, playing Kansas. Could they get their second Power 4 win of the season? So we'll see that. And then, look, this Idaho team now, the Vandals of Idaho, they got a ball club. They went and beat Wyoming. Wyoming now 0-2. So maybe Idaho is just that good, because they went blow for blow with Oregon in week one. Wyoming just not able to get anything going offensively. And then we talked about San Jose State and Air Force earlier. Air Force just can't get anything going right now. They're not getting any of those pop plays on the run game. They're getting 3 yards, 4 yards, 6 yards. They're not getting anything that breaks for 10, 12 yards like they typically do. But I think we've been overlooking San Jose State a little bit. They're now 2-0 going into week 3. So San Jose State, look out for the Spartans. Colorado State gets the win 38-17. Good to see them finally put up some points Look to see what they do in this next week. And then, hey, little Sunbelt Mountain West action. Big time win for Georgia Southern. 20-17 over a Nevada team that has looked pretty good 2 weeks in a row. And, you know, I got to see Georgia Southern against Boise, and Georgia Southern's got a little squad. So they go on a long travel day after a tough game versus Boise State, and they get a big-time non-conference win in Reno. We got – am I good, Jeff?
Yeah,
we
you're
got some
good.
tech
It was on my,
happening
it was
there.
on my end.
You're moving around. You know, if you can't see, if you're wondering why I was rambling right there, Jeff was moving all around, and he makes me real nervous when he's doing that because I don't know if I'm talking to myself when that happens.
I'll let you know. My damn computer was freezing up, but we're good to go now.
Oh, well, I just went on a nice little monologue through the whole Mountain West in case you missed it.
It was great. No, I could hear you. I just couldn't move. I couldn't move anything.
Sunbelt Conference, they got a bunch of wins. Not a lot of them pretty. James Madison, we talked about them a little bit earlier. Just kind of ugly, but they get the win, man. It's better. I'll tell you this. It's better to have ugly games when you win. Coastal with another big performance. William and Mary. Georgia State gets a win over Chattanooga. And then Louisiana. Boy, Terry thought Kennesaw State was going to beat Louisiana.
He did.
Terry Johnson. He was adamant about that. I guess a couple guys got hurt. But Louisiana starting to step on the gas a little bit.
Sure are. We talked about them being a team to watch.
Now, I got to look that up. When is the Texas State v. Louisiana matchup and where? Because that,
I'll tell you,
could be something. It's probably a Tuesday night game, I bet. I bet you it's a midweek. And then,
I'll tell you what, they got a big matchup this weekend.
The Cajuns? Who they got?
That can't be right. No, that's 2 weeks. Never mind. They're on a bye. They're on a bye this week, but then they got Tulane
in 2 weeks. Yes, they do.
Tuesday, October 29th is when Texas State play. The Louisiana goes to Texas State. ESPN2.
Week 4, Tulane goes to Lafayette?
The 21st.
Last game of the day for us to talk about Southeast Louisiana, Southern Miss. Southern Miss gets a big win. You know, hey, Southern Miss, you gotta when you've been struggling, you gotta get wins like that. You gotta beat not so great teams, and that's what they did there. Well, Jeff, I know we got a bunch of voicemails. Look, guys, I love it. We were sitting there at the hotel, and the phone was ringing off the hook. Love to see it. We were trying to guess who it was. You know, the Liberty game would end and the phone would ring. We're like, it's got to be Zach Green. You know, the App State Clemson. We knew we were going to get a call, at least a call from Stu.
Yeah.
But
we split them up. We'll play half of them today, half of them on Wednesday, and we'll just keep kind of going that route as best we can to when we get this many calls. So appreciate you guys calling in.
Yeah, keep hitting that hotline at 615-900-4286 if you want to leave your hottest take. If you want to call for the head of your head coach, if you want to talk somebody off the ledge, any of that, do it. 615-900-4286. Jeff, let's see what we got.
Hey, boys. Stu's writing Twitter. You know the drill. I don't shy away when it's bad. And this is the worst it's ever been. I don't think that I've ever seen a more unprepared App State football team. I'm outside the stadium chugging Miller Lite, but the good news, I can still hear the score. You know, I think it's a cool 56-10 right now. I have never in my life seen a more unprepared, let me back up. I've never seen a more what looks like unprepared App State football team in history. I am brutally embarrassed. I was planning on going to the SF Club and Tigertown Tavern in Clayton Town tonight. It's out of the question. I am absolutely mortified. Anderson Castle looks like the only one that knows what he's doing, has any idea how to play football, and I'm absolutely embarrassed. I have no idea what else has happened today. I have nothing left to say. I call you guys when we win. I call you guys when we lose. This is one of those losing calls. God bless Group of 5. Thanks for everything you do. I'm going to walk back to the cooler and grab another ice-cold fine Pilsner. Good night.
Poor Stu, man.
Yeah, he's
He's
going.
faithful
Well,
Colorado.
what was it last year or was it the year before where he was really going through it early in the year, and then they started. It must have been last year, and then
Yeah.
they started turning it up a notch. So you only hope for that for Stu.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was not good, man. That was. I mean, we literally left the Texas State game, and or we no, it was after the game. We went to our hotel, got cleaned up, and went to a sports bar in San Marcos to watch the game. And by the time we left the hotel and got to the bar, it was 35-0. And literally, it came across the
Wow.
ticker on the bottom, and I saw it, and I was like, "That surely that's not accurate," because it was like 35-0, and it said like 6 minutes left in the first. Still, it's like surely that's not right. And then we pulled it up,
Sure
and sure
was.
enough, man.
Wow.
What else we got?
Group of 5 guys, Josh Bevel here. Little ugly victory, 20-17, but hey, I'll take it. Eagles are in the win column, baby. I can't complain with the victory. We won't remember how the game went, but we will remember a victory. Thank the Lord for sober drivers, because had a few too many tonight, but it is what it is. But, I'd like to see Jalen White get going a little bit more. I really don't know why we can't run the ball. I think we're being a little bit too predictable. We're only wanting to run kind of in between the guards, kind of like draws or dives or kind of like an inside zone, if you will. I'd like to see us maybe go in the pistol, something like that, and maybe try to run a stretch if you want to run it out of shotgun. Just try to switch it up, have a different variation of things. But I still don't know where Tyler Fromm is. There's nothing wrong with him, and we're just not putting him in the game. We're trusting on number 11, Bo Johnson. And, sorry, Bo, but you're not that good. Tyler Fromm, 4-star out of high school at Warner Robins, Georgia. Transfer from Auburn. We got to get him in the game. So, we still got a lot of things to fix, a lot of penalties today. But W's a W, so I can't complain with the win. We're coming back to the state of Georgia with the win. Got South Carolina State next week. So we'll see how that one goes. Hopefully we beat them by 100. Hail Southern, go Eagles, GATA.
Appreciate it, Josh. Yeah, we saw him in the spring game. Fromm physically looks the part, and sometimes you just got to get those guys going early, get them the ball. I don't know what they're doing.
And I had noticed that when I was down there in week 1. He didn't get a ton of snaps, and he definitely didn't get a ton of targets. I don't know if he got any targets in that first game. And there was a couple times they were down in the red zone and they didn't get it to him, which is what we thought, he would be. They struggled in the red zone last year. We thought, okay, now you got your big body tight end. Perfect. But still not seeing it. But hey, that's a big win. Now Nevada has looked good for two straight weeks.
They have. All right, let's get to our third voicemail.
Hey, group of 5 guys, this is Bobcat Den. I told y'all. I told y'all Texas State, baby, is not to be messed with. We are coming. We are here. Eat them up, baby. Eat them up.
Texas State looks good, man.
They look really good. I'll say this. They got a way more engaged fan base than I expected. They're all on top of it,
Yeah.
I thought it was just creme brulee over there holding the fort down. And I got to say, I know he had, obviously, I'm so pissed we didn't get to link up with him. But I don't know, man. Maybe there's a Sun Belt championship in the future or a potential playoff game in the future where we can make something work.
No question. Let's finish off the voicemails on this Monday with our boy Zach Green.
What's up, boys? Zach Green here. It is 2 a.m. on the East Coast, and I just watched the latest game I've ever watched my team play in, and it was one of the ugliest but most exciting wins at the same time that I've ever seen. Absolutely insane stuff going on in Las Cruces tonight. Down like 17-9 in the third or fourth quarter. Offense was abysmal. At one point, we were 0 for 10 on third downs. It was just so uncharacteristic. The unsportsmanlike penalties were back. And then the defense starts playing really well, which is unexpected as well. And the defense keeps holding serve. It holds serve, holds serve. And next thing you know, we finally get our offense together. Cooley runs for a couple of touchdowns. We look like our old selves. And, man, it feels so good to escape out of that place with a win, man. That was scary. I was already talking about how we can still win a conference championship. There's a lot to play for, and that's true, of course. But now I guess technically the playoff is still on the table. But we shouldn't be talking about that right now because we got a lot to fix. I'm just excited to get to fix it 2-0, baby. 3 straight wins over New Mexico State, and it is just a great night to be a Flames fan. I got to get to bed because I got to go to church at 9:15 in the morning. But
dedication.
Just happy to be in this position. Got to clean it up. App State, what the heck are you doing? Kennesaw, kind of embarrassing. Tulane, man, I wish you had gotten that. I'm forgetting some of the other games. Boise, so close. A couple other UTEP, that's embarrassing. Their coach, Southern Utah's coach was kind of talking crap about UTEP. UTEP's fans got mad about it, and then Southern Utah's coach comes in there and beats them in overtime. Crazy day. College football is really weird today. Go Flames, though. Thankful to make it out alive. Let me calm down a little bit and then get into bed. Hope you guys enjoyed San Marcos. Thanks, guys. Talk to you later. Go Flames. Go Conference USA. God bless.
Appreciate you, Zach. We'll get to the rest of the voicemails.
Well, Zach, first of all, do they not have the 11:30 service up there? I mean, my God, usually you got to get the late. Usually that's the busy one. You know, the 9 a.m. is tough. I mean, but you know, that App State Liberty game in Week 5, they both better figure it out. Otherwise, that game's not looking as exciting as it was originally looking.
It'll still be good, I'm sure.
Yeah, it should be good. But what'd you say, Jeff? We'll get to the rest of them on Wednesday.
Yep, we'll play the rest of them on Wednesday.
That's a big time hat you got on, by the way.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know,
that's a big time. It's crazy because when you bought that, I thought you said I got to buy this for my wife. And
yeah, well,
here
she
you
wanted
are.
one of the vintage rope hats, and I love the take back Texas.
I like it too.
Motto, logo, all of it. So
yeah,
you know,
solid.
It's a shared hat.
Well, hey man, appreciate everybody hanging out with us on this Monday morning. We got a big time interview coming tonight that will drop. Probably will drop like Tuesday, I think. But stay tuned for that announcement. Appreciate everybody watching and listening. Make sure you follow us on all the social media platforms at Group of Five Guys. Subscribe to the YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify channel. Leave a 5-star rating and a review. Tell your family and friends all about us. Guys, have a fantastic week. We got football on Thursday this week, so we got a short one, boys and girls. Big couple of games Thursday and Friday this week. Hope you have a great Monday. We're out of here.